Welcome to the Cyber Health Podcast. I'm Stephen Perano, your host. This is a place where we have interviews with medical professionals, people in the technology industry. And today I'm very excited to introduce you to our guest. The gentleman that you see in front of you is none other than Dr. Arthur E. Palamara. Dr. Palamara is a highly respected figure in the medical community, known for his profound expertise in vascular surgery. With a medical career spanning several decades, he has been a senior attending in vascular surgery at Memorial Regional Hospital in Hollywood, Florida since 1979. Dr. Palamara's academic journey is equally impressive, including a cardiovascular fellowship at Methodist Hospital, Baylor College of Medicine, and a rich academic background with an MD from the University of Rome. He has also served as Associate Professor of Surgery at the University of Miami. Notably, Dr. Palamara has been a pioneer in patient safety and healthcare reform, contributing significantly to both medical and social economic discussions. Today, we are honored to have him here in the studio. Thank you so much for joining us and giving us your time, Doctor.
Steve, thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. I actually hardly recognize your introduction, but I appreciate it. It's very kind of you.
Thank you, Doc. Well, I don't want to waste any time because time is valuable, so let's just get right into it. Dr. Palamara, what inspired you to pursue a career in vascular surgery?
Actually, the reason was that I chose vascular surgery was because of its complexity. In 1978, I had the choice to go to the University of Miami as a cardiac surgeon or to go to Methodist Hospital in Houston, Texas to do vascular surgery. Having done about 500 open heart surgeries at St. Luke's Hospital in New York, I found the procedure to be very repetitious and without very much of a challenge. Obviously, every operation can present a challenge, but vascular surgery encompasses pretty much the entire body. You have carotid arteries, you have the neck, you have neurology, you have kidneys, you have liver, you have aneurysms, just about the entire body. So to me, that was a lot more intriguing, and I thought that would be a much more fulfilling career.
Well, what goes through your mind right before you begin an operation?
Very good question. And I appreciate having people like yourself in the room who are skilled, knowledgeable, have done the operations before, and provide an incalculable help to getting us through the operation. I take my hat off for your dedication to the profession. What goes through my head is really thinking about what I've got to overcome, what the challenges are. Every operation is different, even though you've done the same operation over and over again. Every operation is different. The anatomy is different. The patient is different. And I should have said before that one of the things I like about vascular surgery is the severity of illness of the patients. They are all sick. They all have multiple problems, kidney failure, previous strokes, heart attacks, and they all have a lot of obstacles that have to be overcome to have a successful outcome. I'm usually thinking about that. Mm-hmm. Number two, I'm thinking about, too, the people I have in the room, the anesthesiologist, whether they're capable of doing the procedure correctly, what I have to worry about, whether I've got to keep an eye on the blood pressure because I don't have confidence that the anesthesiologist may be doing that. Other assets that are in the room, sterility, making sure people don't put their hands in the wrong place, making sure we have the correct instrumentation. And right now we use a lot of radiology and people that are knowledgeable. So if I have people around that I'm comfortable with, it's usually a piece of cake. If I have people around that are not terribly knowledgeable, don't have a good deal of experience, that increases the anxiety for me. And I think that's probably reflected in my attitude, my speech, my conversation, and so forth. Right. And I'm sure you're a perceptive person. You've probably seen me at both ends of my emotional level. And so consequently, it is that is what you kind of carry into the operating room with you. And you also hope for luck and that the good Lord is looking down and giving you all the assets that you could possibly have to have a successful outcome.
How hard is it to look at a family member in their eyes and tell them that you did everything you could, but unfortunately, they didn't make it?
It's one of the more, if not the most challenging experiences that a physician and a surgeon can have. The reason I chose vascular surgery, too, is because You have a condition, you have a period of time that you treat that patient, and then you can see your outcome almost immediately. And thank goodness that doesn't happen too often, but it can be extremely challenging to try to inform a loved one that the person that we operate on did not make it. I can think of several instances where that took place. If you have someone who's elderly and their expectations for a longer life is not very long, kind of short, it's much easier. If you have someone who you're not expecting to die, then it can be a very, very difficult situation to overcome. One does the best that one can. One tries to make it. There's no way you can actually make it kind or gentle. It's a very brutal experience. And I've had families react in various ways. Some are accepting, some are not accepting, some are challenging, some are hysterical. It also depends upon their cultural background as well. I want to conclude by saying that I go into every operation with the expectation that the patient is going to do well. And if I don't have that expectation, then I won't do the surgery. If I can't figure out some sort of a game plan to get that patient successfully off the table and better, then I won't do the operation. And 99% of the time, even more than that, it goes well, and we were able to do that. You can probably accuse me of maybe overstepping that a bit, for the simple reason that I will take on challenges maybe that we should not take on. Obviously, always with the patient's cooperation and with their consent and with the family's consent. But you live in a world where we are doing things, keeping people alive right now, that heretofore would have passed away at much earlier age. And if you can honestly justify the need for the operation to yourself and to the patient, and both parties are willing to accept the consequences, then it is an appropriate thing to do. If you're doing it for your own good, or if you're doing it for a financial benefit, then obviously I don't think you can have that reassurance, that confidence that you're doing it correctly. But if you are trying to make them better, and they understand that there is a risk there, and in certain cases the risks are higher, then I think it is justified, and one can at least walk away saying that you tried your best.
Yeah, you never know what comes through that door working at a level 1 trauma center.
Nope, you don't.
No, you don't. How has technology played a role in the care that you provide for patients?
Well, technology has kind of taken over. And in fact, that's something you might want to get into a little bit later. Because we have this technology, is it being overused and abused? But from the surgical perspective, particularly in vascular surgery, because of relative ease, it is much easier to put a wire and a balloon and a stent into someone's blocked artery than it is to do a bypass. Now, whether it's beneficial or not, whether it enjoys a successful outcome, remains to be debated.
The buzzword for people that are looking into having surgeries, different surgeries, not necessarily in vascular, they hear the concept of robotic surgery. Do you think robotic surgery will ever have a role in vascular surgery?
No.
No,
I
right?
don't. No. They've tried it, and it really hasn't worked. It's very expensive, and it is very laborious and very time-consuming, and it really doesn't offer any advantages over the endovascular. I even have to be a bit of a cynic and say many of the operations that are done, I'm not sure it really has a role in. In other words, doing a robotic gallbladder operation, is that any better than doing it laparoscopically? I don't think so. It's more time-consuming, and I think you still have the same holes in your belly, and I don't think it really does. If you go ahead and try to do an abdominal aneurysm, let's say, or some sort of a blockage in the arteries in your abdomen, well, the aorta and the iliac arteries, and you put that clamp on, and it doesn't hold because there's calcium there or something like that, and it comes off, you've only got a couple seconds to get inside that belly and stop the bleeding. So it's been tried, and it really hasn't worked out very well.
What changes do you see are crucial for the future of healthcare?
The fact that the United States spends twice as much money as any other developed country, and our outcomes are 17th and 18th, depending on what you're looking at, that means that we have to have a much more efficient system. And the current fragmented system that we have right now is very patient unfriendly. It works well if you're healthy. You go in for your annual checkup, and if you have any minor problems, they give you some medicine for that. But the change is going to have to occur at both a governmental and a corporate level. Otherwise, we're not really doing the patients any help, any assistance, any benefit.
How does politics and medicine impact patient care?
I'm going to take that two ways. Okay, we have governmental politics and we have medical organizational politics. Let's start with the governmental. The government is the biggest spender in healthcare and medicine. And right now, we have the three gorillas. The first gorilla are the insurance companies, the second gorilla are the pharmaceuticals, and the third are the hospital associations. Each one is trying to outdo the other. So corporations make it more difficult to give out authorizations to do a procedure or to give a pharmaceutical. Pharmaceutical company comes up with a strategy to try to undo that. The hospitals hire more people to look at various avenues that they can use to try to increase their revenues. They're all competing with one another. The objective of these large corporations, and we'll leave pharmaceuticals for last, the objective of these corporations is to service their bottom line. Even public hospitals, the CEOs of the public hospitals, their criteria for success is how much money they've made over the past year. Not how many patients have gotten better, not that they've lowered the cost of care, not that more people are walking, not more that they've improved the quality of community life, but how much money they have in their bank accounts at the end of the year. So you have a proprietary corporation, let's say like HCA, for example. They want to make money and they want to service their stockholders. Even public hospitals, they have a board that they report to that's appointed by the governor. How much money are you in the red, or how are things going, that sort of thing. So their value is adjudicated based upon the profitability. Now you look at the pharmaceuticals, and that is an interesting question because they claim that they spend several billions of dollars to bring a drug to market. And to the good, they've done some remarkable work. We are paying for the rest of the world. What Wegovy, Ozempic, those things cost about $8,000 a month. And you can buy the same medication in South America for $80 a month. So we're paying for it. Do we have an obligation to? It's more of a moral or humanitarian question than they do. So it's going to be almost impossible with the current polarization of our politics to be able to come up with a solution to our healthcare mess. Now, let's go into organization. I've been very active both at the county, the state, and at the federal level. And they kind of just do the best they possibly can, acting as supplicants to the governmental agencies and to the insurance companies and to the pharmaceuticals, instead of doing something dramatic to try to change it. And I hold us, I'm part of this too, as responsible for not being as productive as we should have been. Long answer to a very simple question.
How you feeling, Doc?
Pretty good,
Okay,
thank you.
great.
Hope I get an A out of this.
Oh, I think you're going to get an A.
Thank you.
Now, Doc, seriously, I know you have written many articles in different publications. Is there anyone in particular that you're most proud of?
It's interesting because I got a letter from the dean at Wake Forest University complimenting me, and several telephone calls too. My telephone number and email are not on those articles, so no one really knows how to get in touch with me. I was kind of flattered to have done that. And I think I pointed out some of the inadequacies of healthcare, and I think that my objections were well taken and received, and whether they did any good or not, time will tell. As you know, I was involved in politics to some degree, still am, ran as a candidate. And when I see inadequacies, my goal is really to try to correct them, to fix them. And you don't find everybody's on board with that. Mm-hmm. And I tried to do it in politics, running for office twice. I tried to do it with organized medicine, which I still do.
Can you elaborate that a little bit more about running for politics?
Yeah. I ran for the State House in 1998, District 100, and then again in 2006, District 99, then they changed it and so forth. And my goal was really, since I have an expertise in healthcare, to try to use that in Tallahassee. The problems that we faced then were very similar to those that we face right now, and I felt having a voice up there would be useful. And gave a lot of speeches, went around, spent a lot of money, and I was honored by being chosen by the editorial boards of both the Sun-Sentinel and the Miami Herald both times and endorsed by them, but it didn't do any good, unfortunately. And it's interesting, though. People kind of wonder why a doctor would take a step back and become a politician. And I'm pretty good in front of an audience, and people seem to listen to what I had to say, so I was going to try to do that. So when I failed in that area, I figured I can probably at least get the word out in some of my observations and by writing. So
Right.
I would do that, and sometimes they're published, sometimes they're not. Sometimes I send them to people that are interested, maybe change their mind, and sometimes just wind up in the newspaper basket. But again, everybody should see how other people live, see what they're going through,
Sure.
see, and unless you go to their home and you see them actually, what they're living, how they're living, that you don't really have an understanding of humanity. And I think all good politicians start out like that. But I mean, walking door to door at 1 o'clock in the afternoon in August is not something you want to do in South Florida.
No.
It was horrible.
With those experiences and looking at today's political climate, would you run now?
I don't even know why I ran then. I spent $25,000 of my own money. I collected a lot of money, $150,000, which was quite a lot of money back in the 1990s and early 2000s too. And I got the endorsement, but it didn't really. No, it was too much of a sacrifice. In retrospect, financially, I'm glad I continued to practice because it would have really caved my income way down to almost nothing. Very difficult to wear two hats like that. Not impossible, it can be done, but it's very difficult. On the other hand, I have no idea what I could have achieved. They say that if you say something 5 times, it becomes a fact. And that has to be contested. Otherwise, you're going to lose the election. You have to spend the money, which is why it's nice to have the money, send out a mailer when your opponent attacks you, and attack ads are very effective. When your opponent attacks you, you have to be able to defend yourself because it may not be true.
Well, leaving politics aside for a moment, what do you consider as a key element in educating the next generation of surgeons?
Yes, that's an easy question. I don't think our residents are coming out well-trained at all. I believe that the individuals who are in charge of our training programs try to make the residents as happy as possible. They try to take away all of those painful things that make you a good surgeon. A good surgeon has to be able to accept responsibility, has to be able to make decisions based upon limited amounts of information, has to be able to reassure people, because reassuring people is probably a third of the battle. And I don't think that any of those attributes are being inculcated into our residents today. We have a situation where they're made to feel comfortable, where they do not take any responsibility, where they their needs, their wants, their desires are held to be more important than that of the patients. And what is going to happen then when they finally finish their training program and they get out there into the cruel, hard world, and the responsibilities is on them entirely, and no help is coming? I don't think that they're prepared for that. There was an article 5 years ago in one of our journals, and the title of it was the presidential address at the Western Surgical Society, who said, the article was Why Johnny Can't Operate. Unfortunately, you got to fly the airplane through the thunderstorm to become a good pilot at some point in time.
Right.
Now, in our residencies, we do that. To get into a jam, there's usually somebody there to help you. If there's people along the way, but at some point in time, you got to be on your own. What I've noticed is some of the foreign trained surgeons that have had to go work in the hinterlands into the backwoods for a couple of years have that sense of responsibility. And right now, I think that our residents don't even want to touch the patients. To get into a little bit off topic, let me see if I can say this in a manner that is doesn't really identify anyone. A female dean of the OBGYN department at a major medical school here in Florida. And I never really got along because my views are maybe too old-fashioned and making residents adhere to a certain responsibility and work ethic. Anyway, at the last AMA meeting, we were having a glass of wine together, and she says, today's residents are brilliant narcissists. This is the dean of the department. Mm-hmm. They don't want to touch a patient. And she says, you can't be a good doctor, particularly OBGYN doctor, without examining the patient, without getting to know the patient. And yet they so dislike this that they're not coming out well trained. Maybe they're admitting the wrong type of person to that field. Maybe they should have people that are more empathetic, but they are interested more in themselves. I guess it was the 1990s, they implemented the 80-hour work week as a result of something that took place at Cornell in New York. And I think that really also took away that sense of obligation.
What was that?
This young lady came in, had taken some non-prescription narcotics, and at about 2 o'clock in the morning, and the resident taking care of the lady, apparently was sleepy and didn't really give the amount of attention that they should have. Now, whether he did anything wrong or not remains to be seen. It doesn't make any difference. And the result is the girl died. And so the father was a very influential person, changed the laws, and said, there's too much work for these residents. Had he been awake, he would have been able to recognize what was wrong with my daughter and would have saved her life. So they changed they implemented an 80-hour work week for all residents, to the point that if you're in the middle of an operation, you got to leave. So I've had several cases when we were training the residents from University of Miami, where they came up to their 80 hours, so they got to go. And so there was a major operation with a carotid body tumor was one of them. There was a second operation with a mycotic aneurysm. And these are things that you see very often. And one case it didn't scrub at all, the other case left halfway through. So I'm a surgeon, in the middle of an operation, say, well, my time is up, I got to go. Good luck. You can't do that. I mean, in the real world, you can't do that.
Right.
You're stuck there. You need to have the ability, the endurance. And it's sometimes painful to do that. So without those challenges, without that sense of responsibility, without being the first call, without having to make a life or death decision, how are you going to be a good doctor? How are you going to be a good surgeon? Should I cut that or not? What are things? Those are the decisions that you have to make. Sometimes you take a risk.
Do you think that's because of the way society is going? Is
Partially.
it a generational thing?
Yeah, helicopter parents. I think that maybe, I don't know, I can't blame that. Who knows? But I think that what's taken place is that we've become such a narcissistic society that everyone feels that they have rights without responsibilities. And when you're a surgeon, particularly that's the question that you asked, you got a lot of responsibility. And that responsibility ends with you. And if you don't have that, if you don't develop that when you're a resident, where there's help around, you're not going to be able to do very well when you're out on your own. Mm. And if you don't have the personality to be able to do it too.
Right.
I mean, it's, sometimes you get into trouble and say, oh, Lord, if you get me out of this, I'll never do it again.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you see it.
I've noticed that. Yeah, I was going to say I've noticed. Like I said, I got into surgery in 2002, and within my small 20 years of doing this, I have noticed a decline. Mm-hmm. I think it has to do a lot with technology too.
Over reliance on technology. Yeah.
The abuse of it that comes with it, the entitlement.
Mm-hmm. It's a word I haven't used. Good word.
Yeah.
There's no entitlement. When you're over there by yourself, it's up to you, baby.
Right.
If you don't pull the airplane up, it's going to crash.
Right.
That it takes a certain amount of courage. That reflects on your other question too. Then having to go out there and face the family. You don't want to do that too often.
Right.
Not good for your reputation either.
What is the best way to avoid coming to see you? How do people stay healthy?
That's easy. Diet and exercise, quite honestly.
Is it really that easy?
It's really that easy. Yeah, I mean, I've got 90-year-olds that come and see me that work out every day. Put a pacemaker years ago when I did pacemakers. It was going to China on a bike trip. But exercise, the human body is a machine. Machines are made to be used. Sedentary lifestyle is the worst thing you can do for yourself. Eating the right foods. And you could you do that. And of course, genes, you can't do very much about genes. Avoidance of bad habits. Smoking, for example. Excess of alcohol is another one. But particularly the world that we live in with the processed foods is horrible. Eating fresh foods, it's just so much better for you that there's no comparison. As one of my colleagues once said, or maybe I said it before too, if people eat themselves onto your operating table, eat themselves again onto your operating table. And, people come to you and say, I want you to take care of this. Well, all right, but are you prepared to make a sacrifice to change your quality of life? And very often they're not. There's, you do an operation on someone, they come back in smoking. I used to tell them, for vascular surgery, smoking is the worst thing you can do for yourself. So I used to have an office on Hollywood Boulevard overlooking the parking lot. So these people would come in, tell them that, talk to them nice, and don't yell at them and so forth, and say, this is what the effects are. And then I guess it'd make them nervous because they go outside to the parking lot before they get into the car to light up a cigarette. Can I just bring you one point more about smoking?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if you and I talked about this the other day, but anyway. About 10 years ago, the number of aneurysms done in the United States was 30,000. Aneurysm is a swelling of the main blood tube in the body, usually the abdominal aorta. So we did about 30,000 of those. Now, there are about 3,000 vascular surgeons, give or take. Other people that do it, but people that call themselves vascular surgeons, about 3,000. So that comes out to about 10 operations per year per surgeon. That's not really enough to keep your skills up, but that's the lower level, the prerequisite for it. Okay. Recent article, going back now about 3 or 4 years. Okay. The number of aneurysms that were done in the United States has gone down to 20,000. That's it. 20,000 out of a population of, 330 million people? 30,000. 20,000. Okay, because of not smoking. That's it. And then of that, about 10% of those are more complex aneurysms too. So the combination of a statin to lower your cholesterol and then of not smoking and all that exercise has really lowered those numbers.
Ozempic, a popular item of choice to lose weight. There's a lot of people getting involved with that. What is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it works if you go off of it. So I'm on a committee, insurance committee actually, IT and quality. And at the last meeting, by the way, this is a hospital committee, our in-hospital insurance company, because I think our employees and everything are self-insured. We self-insure ourselves, rather. So we've made money, and basically we've made money by using generics. Before they started this, the doctors would prescribe about half generics and half proprietary medicine. After this insurance company kind of obligated doctors and recommended to doctors to prescribe generic medication. So we did pretty well. We had Blue Cross and Blue Shield, a number of different insurance companies, about 4 or 5 that were members of this thing. And we had a panel of patients we took care of and saved quite a bit of money doing that. Well, at the last meeting, they gave us a paper with the 15 now most effective medications on there and the cost of those medications. And Ozempic, I think, is $8,000 a month. Wegovy is about the same. Farixa, all these things that we're using. I don't think I pronounced that correctly. Anyway, it's going to bankrupt us. We can't really afford it. So the insurance, that's about the last time we're going to make a profit. So you apply that nationally now, And 55% of Americans are considered to be obese, BMI over 30. Just about everybody's over BMI of 25. So I'm not sure it's going to work out. To go back to our discussion about the gorillas, the insurance companies, almost makes you feel sorry for insurance companies. But one of the doctors very correctly asked, incidentally, he says, so I've got a patient in front of me, and these GLP-1 inhibitors, that the Ozempic and Wegovy, this other one, he says, if I'm expected to give my patient the best care, I should prescribe them that medication. So what do? Do I think of the insurance company now, think of how much money we're going to spend to give them that medication? Or do we do what's best for my patient? No easy answers.
Right.
Yeah.
In the studio with me is Dr. Arthur E. Palamara, and we are about to do the 5 for 5 questions. Where are you originally from?
New Jersey. That was easy.
And would you say North Jersey?
I would say Central.
Central.
Union County, Roselle Park, Berkeley Heights, that area.
Okay.
Which I wanted to go back to, by the way. But
did you? Oh, to practice?
I did. Yeah.
But you end up still coming down here.
Yeah.
You got tired of the cold.
No, I got a job. I'm still here.
Well, it's funny you say that you're from New Jersey, because I'm from New Jersey. I'm sure we know a lot of the same people. And the reason why I say that is because when I was walking to the studio, I happened to find something in the parking lot. It might be yours.
No, it's not. On behalf of Governor Christie, I would like to say that this did not originate in New Jersey. What part of New Jersey are you from?
Passaic, New Jersey.
Oh,
North
yeah.
Jersey, yeah.
Oh, Patterson,
Nutley, yeah.
Lodi.
Mother's from Nutley, and
Sure.
family in Garfield and Wayne,
Yeah,
all around.
beautiful. I like New Jersey.
Yeah, I like too. Speaking of Jersey, have you ever seen the movie The Godfather?
Yeah.
Was that about your life? Okay.
Although I did have some association with them, though. I worked for Madison Square Garden for about 5 years in New York. And, a lot of Mafia there, though. They were very nice. I never got involved with them, though. They called me once down here to see a patient. So when I left New York, they're very nice to me. I stayed away from, I don't take any favors for them. And you take care of them, just have them pay your bill, nothing else, though. So one Sunday evening after dinner, my kids were small. I think they were about maybe 3 and 5, something like that. Get a telephone call from somebody that I knew from the garden who was Mafia. So, Doc, yeah, how are you? Good. Would you mind coming up and taking a look at a friend of ours? He's not doing real well. He lived in Pompano. So I said, I got my wife and kids. Oh, you can bring them out. I said, it's okay. It's okay. We just want your advice. So I stuck them in the car. Now about 7:30 or so. It's dark. Mm-hmm. So we drive up to Pompano, get there, and they're on the water, everything. And the house is pure Brooklyn. They got plastic on the seat covers, heavily decorated, very Baroque and everything like that. And the Mafia guy was Jewish, and his wife was Italian. So it was kind of Jewish-Italian Brooklyn.
Right.
So anyway, they got these 2 pillars sticking up in the living room against the wall, and there's 2 vases sitting on it with a light coming out, spotlight coming. Oops, sorry, spotlight coming. I don't have to pay for that, do I?
No.
And the spotlight coming out, and everything. So I go back to see the patient, and a very old guy, and he had really, really bad arthritis. His skin was pasty. He was barely conscious, if he was conscious at all. And his arthritis was so bad that his rib cage was sitting on top of his iliac crest, like this, bent over. Like he could barely breathe. So I walked out and I said, listen, I want you to know I don't think he's going to make it. I said, if you want to try to save him, bring him down to the hospital here in Hollywood where I have privileges. We'll admit him, we'll get seen by some really good doctors. But I got to warn you. I said, Doc, we understand. So then my kids are running around, they're 3 and 5. Mm. And I said, those vases are very nice. Where are they from? Oh, they're from the Ming Dynasty. So I grabbed my kid and said, don't move a muscle.
Right.
No, your kids are more important than this. I said, no, they're not.
Speaking of friends of ours, did you ever send friends of ours to collect a debt or co-payment from a patient?
No.
Okay. Just
Yeah,
checking.
well, I actually sued one patient once, and I never did it again. Happened to be an Italian, by the way, older guy. So on Sunday night, I got a telephone call from one of the hospitals that he was in heart failure and that his heart rate was about 20. So I drove in, guy in his 80s, and I put a temporary pacemaker in and saved his life. So the next day, in the operating room, I put a permanent pacemaker in. So I think back in those days, we were paid about $2,000 for it. Now it's about $800 for the same operation. So anyway, saved his life. So he's got Medicare but no co-insurance. So he comes into the office. So the son pulls me aside and he says, listen, Dad's got a lot of money. Why don't you have the Medicare check go to him? And then he'll pay you the full amount of the bill. I said, okay. So I did that. So we keep on billing the guy and billing the guy and billing the guy and nothing. So I got an attorney, a friend of mine, sent him a collection letter, right? So the attorney cost me $500, right, for the attorney to send a letter, stuff like that. So it turns out the guy took the Medicare money, went to the track and lost it. So now I'm at the operation plus the $500. I said, the hell with it.
Let him go. Oh, wow. Okay. And you checked first if he was, connected, or no? You just took a shot. Okay.
Nah.
I'd like to give my guests a gift, and I thought to myself, what would be the ideal gift for a man who doesn't want any gifts? And I apologize for missing your birthday this year. So I do have something for you.
Not the brass knuckles.
No.
Aren't you nice?
And if you don't mind opening it, we'd love to show the audience what you got there. I promise it won't explode. Okay.
Should we save the paper for next year?
Yeah, let's save it, please.
It looks like a picture frame. Oh my God, where the hell did you get that? Oh, that is cute. That's really cute. So what you're alluding to is the fact that I did a stand-up piece as Father Guido Sarducci and enjoyed it. And never had the opportunity to do it again, but I did pretty well. Not as good as you. I'm not professional. But thank you very much. It's a very thoughtful gift. My hero.
Yep, that's a picture of Father Guido Sarducci from Saturday Night Live. Who was that? Don Novello, I think it was.
His sister was Secretary of Health of the United States.
Really?
You didn't know that?
No.
Seriously?
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, now this is the last question, and this is a serious question, and it's just a name. I'm gonna tell you the name, and then I just want you, if you can, share a story. Dr. Jeffrey A. Hertz.
Jeffrey and I, that was the most enjoyable period of practice. For your listeners, Dr. Hertz and I were partners, and then we went to work at Memorial Hospital. Partners for about 5 years, I guess. And he was a generation younger than myself. And very, very, very smart man. Very quiet. Completely opposite from me in every respect. And a delightful individual. Very dry personality. I could make him laugh, though. And unfortunately, Dr. Hertz passed away this year, very suddenly at a very young age, very youthful, different personality. He would chase every red blood cell. He would make little teeny weeny incisions like this, and we got along very well. So another story that comes to mind, he didn't have as much endurance as I have. So he calls me about 6 o'clock at night. He's stuck in an operation, a very difficult redo operation. Do you mind coming to give me a hand? I said, okay, fine. So I go over there. I'm standing on the opposite side of the table from where the surgeon usually stands. So he says, would you mind doing the anastomosis? Now, an anastomosis is when you put things together to like an artery in the vein or something like that. So I said, okay, I'll be happy to do that. Well, Jeffrey and I had something else too. Our focal distance was a lot different. I stand back like this. He was down like this. So I'm sewing like this, and I missed it. He says, what's the matter with your vision? I said, I'm looking with one eye. He says, you got trouble with your other eye? I said, "No, your head's in the way."
That's great.
He was a good person. I miss him. He had an incurable condition. He was tired. He did not want to go on. And he had made a decision to go into hospice. So I went to a medical meeting that night, and I'm sitting at the meeting, beautiful spring evening, and my telephone rings, and it's him, cell phone. And he says, "Just calling to say goodbye." So I mumbled a few words. I'm not really good at stuff like that. And I hung up. I can't let it leave like that. So I left, and I drove back to the hospital, and mother was there, sister was there, wife was there, stuff like that too. So we did talk, and we talked about some of the cases that we had done, and one of the more difficult cases that we had done. And he said, "Yes, and you made me close the entire thing." So that's the last time we talked. Hope he's in a better place.
I'm sure he is. And this episode is dedicated to in loving memory of Dr. Hertz. I had the pleasure of working alongside him many times, and he definitely let me know if I was funny or not. I would practice a lot of jokes on him, and he would just give me that look, and I knew that, shut up, Stephen, let's get back to work.
I could make him laugh.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We appreciate you. If you haven't already, follow us on social media, and thank you so much, Dr. Palamara.
Pleasure. It was an honor to be here. Thank you, sir.
All right.